This is Michael Clara. Welcome to another edition of my blog, michaelclara.com, and it's titled Local School Boards Can Make a Difference. Our community right now is in the midst of a fight with the school bureaucracy trying to get rid of some plans they have to put a cell tower on top of Glendale Middle School. And I'm going to make some postings about that and how that's going. But before that, I kind of wanted to stop here and do a little editorial note on an issue that happened. And I also wanted to do this now in honor of former Speaker of the House, Becky Lockhart, who passed away a couple weeks ago. In the fall of 2013, I went to the legislature and testified in the Education Committee, and she helped shepherd and help get a bill passed. It's HB 250 that I want to talk about at the end of this podcast, because it addresses one of the problems that we're having right now when it comes to school governance and trying to address the issues of the community. In the state of Utah, you see here in this graphic that the community is over the school board, because the school board is elected by the community and the superintendent works for the school board. Unfortunately, in our school district, the Salt Lake City School District, it's the opposite. The members of the school board think they work for the superintendent. We had a case about 2-3 weeks ago. Some parents approached me and explained to me about a staff report in the Salt Lake City Planning Commission that is going to allow a cell tower to be placed on the top of Glendale Middle School, and the parents wanted to know why I approved that. And I told them I didn't approve it. I had no idea this was happening. I was not informed by the board president. I was not informed by the superintendent. I had no idea whatsoever that that there was plans to put a cell tower up on Glendale Middle School. And then I find out after looking into it that they knew about this almost a year ago, in the summer of last year. I found out that the Glendale Community Council had no idea, and they were upset when I told them about it last week. And I also found out that the school community council on Friday, this past Friday, had no idea, and they voted unanimously to reject any idea or notion that a cell tower would be put on top of their school. This was brought up at the school board meeting last Tuesday on January 20th, and there's two parts of this meeting that I want to listen into. You can go to my YouTube video or my blog and hear the whole part of the meeting as it pertains to this. But there's two aspects of this meeting that I wanted to bring up for this particular podcast in terms of school governance.
So this is an issue that has been percolating under the surface. It is not noticed for discussion. So I'm just going to go over it really briefly, because Michael raised it with me earlier as his perception is it's very urgent right now. And that is the question of cell towers on schools. It's come to us now from at least 2, possibly 3 different sources that there's some community concern about the existence of those towers. Next Wednesday, there will be a hearing on conditional use permit to place a new one on Glendale at the city, because it's higher than I guess the zoning allows. Did you have a question, Janet? Or? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me a question. So that's the urgency. I mean, that's happening on Wednesday. Mikkel and Janet have collected information. We have cell towers on many of our schools now. And so if we're going to bring...
I just wanted to bring up in this particular meeting that you see how the board president introduced the subject of the cell towers, and she said it's not on the agenda. And in the meeting, she actually points out Michael's going to go to the planning commission and speak against this, and doesn't seem objectable to it. Not that it would have mattered to me at that point, because I felt that you'll see that I had every right to do that and to weigh in on it. But nothing in this meeting was said to me that they were concerned about that. So I had sent a letter to the Planning Commission, and you'll see here it starts off on behalf of the residents of Salt Lake City School District 2. I'm requesting so I go on and I explain what my concerns are. Well, oddly enough, following the day of that meeting that you just saw the board president bring it up in the meeting, she writes a letter to the planning commission and says, and by the way, the letter's not CC'd to me, it is CC'd to the Verizon wireless specialist or real estate person, but I don't get this letter. I ended up getting it. The planning one of the planning people gave it to me and said that this was given to them. But it just says that it has come to the board's attention that one of our board members, J. Michael Clara, has been in contact with the Salt Lake City Planning Commission Division regarding the cell tower installation at Glendale Middle School. I wanted to take a moment to clarify that whatever requests, complaints, or demands that Mr. Clara may be making of you, his actions are not sanctioned, directed, or authorized by the Board of Education for the Salt Lake City School District. As I am sure you know, the powers of the board are vested in the board as a whole and not in the individual board members. Accordingly, while Mr. Clara is free to meet, discuss, and opine on any occasion, you should be aware that he is acting as a citizen who happens to be a board member. So anyways, it's a ridiculous letter to say the least, because I don't need the sanction or direction or authorization of the school board to go talk about an issue that, by the way, the school board was already bypassed. This should have come to the school board, but it didn't. And then I'm telling the planning commission that they have documents saying that, because my neighbors thought that the school board was okay with what was going on, because the documents say that the property owner is the Board of Education and that the application was submitted under the authority of the Board of Education. And all I'm doing is telling the planning commission that is not true, because underscoring here, or she underscores what I said, that it's only by the authority of the entire board can somebody make those kinds of decisions. And so it's odd that the board president doesn't raise an eyebrow whatsoever when somebody is submitting paperwork, a bureaucrat, and is submitting paperwork on behalf of the school board. But when an actual school board member goes to a planning commissioner, sends a letter on behalf of the residents that he represents, she's going to send this nasty letter to the planning commission saying that I don't have their sanction, direction, or authority to be doing that, and I don't need it. Now, this, like I said earlier, this last in 2013, this is a law that was shepherded by Becky Lockhart, who was a Speaker of the House in 2013, and it says, notwithstanding a local school board status as a body corporate, an elected member of a local school board serves and represents the residents of the local school board member's district, and that service and representation may not be restricted or impaired by the local board member's membership on or obligation to the local school board. And by the way, Speaker Lockhart was also the speaker during this session, 2014, when this passed, and it was co-sponsored by Representative Draxler and Senator Reed. So I'd like to go to the end this podcast with just listening to what the senators had to say when this was on the floor of the Senate. Very instructive, and a couple of them are a bit prophetic, if you will. And this law was intended to avoid the kind of posturing that we're hearing from this board president. She's upset because she feels an obligation to protect the interest of the bureaucracy. I don't, because the bureaucracy in this case is wrong, as we'll see later on this week. They're just wrong to have put cell towers in at school, on the roofs of school, without going to the school community council, without coming to the school board. But now the board president wants to circle the wagons and protect the bureaucracy, and that's just not how I'm wired. I can't do that, and I'm going to stand with the people that elected me. And these three senators that you'll briefly hear speak on the floor of the Senate echo that.
The local school board amendments. Senator Reed.
Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill that came out of the Education Task Force. and it deals with school board representation. Let me just read this line on line 38 through 41. It says, notwithstanding a local school board status as a body corporate, an elected member of a local school board serves and represents the residents of the local school board member's district, and that service and representation may not be restricted or impaired by the local school board members' membership on or obligation to the local school board. So it's really weighs the obligations between the corporate board that represents the entire district versus individual board members' responsibility to the constituents that elected them in the first place. And it's providing essentially in the law an understanding that there is a difference and there is an obligation for the elected official to represent their constituents as much or more than the body corporate.
Okay, discussion to House Bill 250. Senator Valentine.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I appreciate this bill because this is a bigger problem than I think sometimes we realize. People get elected to the school board and believe that their loyalty is to the school board and not to the people who elected them. And so even though this looks like just a sleeper of a bill, just another bill on a lazy afternoon, this is a major change because it clarifies for the first time who the fiduciary duty and who the duty of loyalty is on the board members. I cannot tell you how frustrated I have been sometimes appearing before some of our school boards and have them almost tell me verbatim that they are representing the board and this is the board's will and the board is a body and that's who they owe the duty of loyalty to. What House Bill 250 says is, wait a minute, people put you there. We elected you. Your duty of loyalty is the people you put you there, not to the corporate body or the body politic as we talk about in the law. So I appreciate the bill. I'll support House Bill 250.
Senator Madsen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to comment on this bill as I did in committee and just follow on the comments from Senator Valentine. I've worked at various levels of government throughout my life. I was in Washington, D.C. at the national and international level for 15 years, spent 3 years on a small city council, and now this is my 10th session in the state legislature. And at each level, I've seen the same phenomenon. When elected officials take office, they begin to interact with the bureaucracy. They begin to develop relationships with the bureaucracy, with department heads and so forth. And what I would characterize as they become co-opted by the bureaucracy. And I think it's human nature. Soon their loyalties lie to the people upon whom they depend for information, the people that they see with much greater frequency than they see the people that elected them to that office. And that causes a problem because the interests of the bureaucracy and the interests of the people who sent us into elected office very rarely align. The bureaucracy has its own interests. Its interest in growing its power and authority, creating empires, making life easier for itself. And the people who elected us most typically just want to be left alone by the bureaucracy. And so there's a big difference between the perception of an elected official that their primary loyalty lies to the institution, to the government, or does it lie to the people that sent them there? And I obviously believe, and I have to always check myself and make sure that I'm not being affected that way as I go through my time in public service. So I really appreciate the way that this bill addresses that all too common phenomenon that happens to elected officials. I remember when I was elected to the city council, we went to training, and part of the training put on by an organization I'm well familiar with more than suggested that the only consideration was the city's interests. That's all that we were to weigh, that we really weren't supposed to consider the interests of the individuals who had elected us, and that was bothersome to me at the time. Still bothersome to me today. So again, I appreciate this bill coming forward. I wholeheartedly support it. I think it gives us all an opportunity to step back and try to set ourselves right as far as who do we really represent, what is our primary, what is our constituency? Is it those who elected us, or is it the bureaucracy? So I support this, and I hope we all will.
Any others? Seeing no more discussion, Senator Reed, back to you for summation.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I said earlier, this bill is a result of our work in the Education Task Force. We had a number of folks testify, both the School Board Association and others, on this issue. It was a healthy discussion. What we learned from that experience was new school board members are being trained to put the school board as a corporate body above all other interests, first and foremost. I think the task force came down on the side of let's represent our constituents first. I would add that our first loyalty is to ourselves, that we're true to ourselves, then to our constituents that elected us, and then, in this case, the school board as a whole. So for the task force, this is an appropriate piece of legislation. And without further ado, I move that we send this to the second reading calendar. Third, excuse me.
Question is, shall House Bill 250 be read for a third time? Roll call vote.
Senator Adams. Bramble. Thank you.
So to Speaker Lockhart and those senators that just spoke and the representatives that helped with this and all those that voted to pass this addition to the law of the powers and authority of a local school board member, I just want to express my gratitude, because I would be in a bind right now. As you can see, the local school board president is trying to use the law as a weapon to silence my voice. They bypass the Board of Education completely, but then when I go to the Planning Commission, they think that they have authority over me. I never asked for their authorization, their sanction, nor did I seek their validation, nor do I need it. But they're still going to let people know that I don't have it. But you know what? I don't need it. And especially with this law that was passed this last year, by wise legislators, I can move forward with representing my community.